In the sun.
Is that right?
Yeah, I told Coach, yeah, you know what the meaning is, season in the sun. He rounded up all his old coaches.
Wow.
Seven of those coaches, four are former Temple players who played for him. 3 are former Temple coaches. Anyway.
Wow.
There's only one condition to the deal happening. And I had to break it to him this morning. And he gave me a big MF, not Mike Fetchko. I said, Coach, you got to win.
There's an idea. Oh, that's great, man.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for coming on. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm in the midst of Super Bowl, which is cool. This is in honor of Bruce Arians and also in honor of Greg Brown. I just grew it last night. So
well done.
Thank you. Anyway, Greg, we're gonna top line it. We're gonna keep it going. Tommy McMillan can't join. These are let me get this off. Hold it, bear claw. I got it down. Thank you so much for coming on, Greg. These folks are all aspiring broadcast students. They really have an interest in sports broadcasting and sports media. They have a few questions. We're only going to try to keep you 30 minutes tops. They have some prepared questions that are going to be led by Colton. And Colton, you can start, and then we'll do a little Q&A at the end. We're really thrilled to have you, the voice of the Pirates, over 25 years, still humming, still going, and your background. They're going to ask you a few questions about that too, Brownie. So, no further ado, Colton, you're first up. Greg Brown, Pittsburgh Pirates.
All right, thank you so much, Mike. Well, Greg, first off, thank you so much for spending some time out of your day to be with us. We all really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Colton. I'm actually, it's been a kind of a busy whirlwind day, which happens on occasion during the off season. We just got done our team photos of the broadcast team. They're redoing them. And I'm actually sitting in the radio broadcast booth at PNC Park as I see the snow falling on the well manicured baseball field here. But I'm anxious to get going, and thanks for the invitation to do this.
Yeah, no problem, Greg. Is there a snow on the ground right now?
Not on the ground. It's just some flurries falling toward the ground, but it's not sticking. It really looks for a really kind of a neat picture here, and it makes you want for the start of baseball season.
There you go. I'm already in Bradenton, so it's only 77 and sunny. Listen,
oh man,
no more questions about, hey, Greg, is it snowing? Let's get to it, bro.
All right, Mike, sounds good. All right, Mike, so first question is, how long do you prepare for each game? And is there like a routine that you have with remembering names of players, stats, and all that jazz that you have to do during the season?
Colton, I get the question asked a lot, how long I prepare, and there's no set time. I try and get to the ballpark as early as possible, especially at home. As much as you love your family and friends, home can be a great distraction. So I actually try and come to this radio booth around noon for a 7 o'clock game. On the road, maybe 3 o'clock, but you can get a lot done in your hotel room in terms of prep. And in terms of remembering names, it's I guess I'm almost known around the league as the guy that has the biggest scorebook. I go to Kinko's every winter to try to refine it and make it better. But the reason why it's so big is because I have such a terrible memory. And so I write a bunch of stuff down on my huge scorebook. Any kind of notes that I might have gathered leading up to the game. I write the lineups down. I write the stats that I feel are important, rankings and so on, and have that ready to go. But also any nuggets along the way that I might have found either talking to a player or reading about him or the team or whatnot. And that's my favorite time of the day, when I actually settle in here, cup of coffee, complete silence, no disrespect to all the people that work around here. They're great. And no disrespect certainly to my supervisors and bosses who have us doing more than just play-by-play. There are a lot of voiceovers. There might be scripts to write or read or whatnot, people to meet and greet around 4 o'clock when kind of media starts to arrive. That's when the back door starts to open a lot and people want to come in and say hi, and which is great, but can be a distraction. So my favorite time of the day is just around this time of the day every summer.
Okay. Oh, awesome. And then next, like, you kind of mentioned it. So, how do you pick out like different storylines and also maybe different stats as you mentioned for each game?
In terms of stats, and then I'll get the storyline stats. I think the minimum that I do are average homers, RBIs. I'm starting to add OPS, which is a new metric. There are so many other analytics that I don't get involved in. I don't want to bog down the listener or the viewer with too much stuff, but I do think that certainly for radio on TV, a lot of those stats are shown. So I do different games. TV, you really don't need to read statistics because they're there on the screen for you. But in terms of radio, I'll do that. And in terms of notes and so on, each team distributes their own set of game notes a couple of hours before game time. I will skim through those with a yellow highlighter, and anything that stands out to me that of interest that I figure majority of fans would be interested in, I'll highlight. And whether I use it or not depends on the pace of the game. A lot of what I write down in the scorebook, many nights, the majority of nights after the game, I look at the scorebook and say, my gosh, I didn't read but one or two of these little nuggets. That's okay. It's almost a crutch that you have it at the ready. You're prepared for any scenario, and timing is important when you add a note. And so anyway, again, going through the game notes, kind of highlight those. I get a little miffed at some PR folks who I think are almost to a degree looking to fill up the sheet, because sometimes I'll see a guy's hitting overall for the year, he's hitting 310, and a note might say in the last 10 games Reynolds is hitting 315. Now he's hitting 310 for the season, but in the last 10 games he's hitting 315. Nothing could be more meaningless in my opinion than that. So I'll disregard that, of course. So again, going through it, finding out what you find is interesting, and either writing those down in my scorebook or highlighting those game notes is what I'll do.
Let me interject here, Colton. I think one of the great talents of Greg Brown is his radio play-by-play. And Greg, I've always wondered, how do you build that picture? How do you, in your mind, like you started as Zoom, the snow's coming down on the infield out here at PNC Park, but how do you do that park to park, night to night? Because how do you visualize telling us 80 miles away, 8 miles away, what it looks like, what it feels like, what's happening in the bullpens, everything?
One thing, Mike, that you'll know because you worked with him, a guy that I've never told you this, Mike, but a guy I did a podcast for about an hour this morning. A gentleman asked me a lot of these questions and asked about inspirations over the years. And I told him not just baseball play-by-play guys who've inspired me, but other people in broadcasting, including all the people at old KDK Radio AM. And one guy who I used to listen to when I was growing up in central Pennsylvania on KDK was Jack Bogut, who did the morning shows. And Jack, and I will never forget it. And this is my gosh, this is over 40 years ago. I will remember him saying it, whether it was maybe doing an off-air interview with someone, but he said what someone told him: he never speaks to an audience. He speaks to one person. And I think that is so critical, because I hear it all the time. I hear people say, hello, folks. Hey, everybody. And that's almost egotistical to a degree. The point is, you're speaking to one person, and that person is generic. Sometimes I visualize a guy sitting at a bar watching the game. Sometimes I visualize my late mother listening to the game on the radio. I have a person who's become dear friends with me thanks to Harry Callis, the late voice of the Philadelphia Phillies. She is physically and emotionally handicapped, and she's blind. And she talks about how she listens to the game all the time. And she talks about how she watches the game all the time, which is unusual. This is a blind person saying, I can't wait to watch you tonight. And so I think of that subconsciously as I'm trying to describe and realizing nobody is seeing this game. Now, there are some people that do bring the radio, and for that, that's a bit of a challenge because, in fact, I'll sometimes look down in the seats and I'll see somebody with a radio headset on, and I feel like, well, I better do a good job because that person is watching this game with me. I can't lie. But again, try to realize that you are the eyes and the ears and the voice, certainly, of what these people cannot see and what otherwise they could not hear unless I brought that to them. So try and be as detailed as possible and as conversational as I possibly can be.
Excellent. I think anybody that's studying this sports broadcasting, take notes and listen to Greg Brown. I sit on my patio all summer and I think I'm at PNC Park, or I think I'm at Dodger Stadium, the way you paint the picture. Honest to God. And then how important my second, go ahead.
I was going to say, how important what?
Is your color guide.
Yeah. Well, first of all, one other note. I asked a dear friend of mine who was my boss many, many years ago. He was a longtime VP for the Chicago Bulls. He hired and fired broadcasters. He one time fired a longtime broadcaster. They got into a contract squabble. And I asked him what in his mind makes a good play-by-play guy, because it's so subjective. I realize that half the people probably hate Greg Brown. I understand that. And I've got tough enough skin now. But I think if you can win over 51% of the audience, you've won. Because even to this day, I'll listen to guys, shame on me, but I'm watching a game. It's an old tradition. We all sports fans have done this for as long as we've lived. We'll watch or listen to a game and we can't wait to criticize what someone has said on the air. And I've done it my whole life and I still do it. Shame on me. Again, who am I to criticize this play-by-play guy? But it's just what we do. And so it's important to keep that in mind. And I asked him again, what makes, with his mind, as objective as he could be, a good play-by-play guy. And he said, I have hired this announcer. I pay him. The Chicago Bulls pay him. That's 3 hours of my airtime advertising my team. So I want him to describe the action as best as he possibly can. That's first and foremost. But I want whoever's listening to the Bulls one night, and especially when they're at Chicago's arena, the United Center, a fan listening, I want them to think, my gosh, I should be there. I'm missing something. And I don't want that to come across unnaturally, enthusiastically, passionately, but as objectively as you can do it. Again, without being phony, that's what I want. And I think about that a lot too when I'm doing the play-by-play, is that you've invested, whoever you are, whether it's Mike, Mom, Bill at the bar, somebody cutting their grass, somebody driving in the car, whoever it might be, you've decided to take some time out of your day, whatever you're doing, to listen to this Pirates game. And not because of Greg Brown, I'm not saying that, but because of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And because of that, I owe it to you and to everyone listening to do the very best job I can and to do it enthusiastically, because again, you've invested your time, then I sure as heck better do that. In terms of the importance of the color man, I think the color announcer is probably most important on television, because you can see, the TV play-by-play guy basically, or gal, becomes the conductor and kind of segueing between what's going on the field and what you can see on the screen, and getting the color analyst to describe what we just saw, and also incorporating, whether it's those nuggets we talked about with Colton, statistics on occasion, but also, because there are so many people involved, producers, directors, cameramen, stage managers, again, conducting this team of people and doing it as seamless as you possibly can, getting the commercials in at the right time, having it not sound choppy, as smooth as possibly can be, entertain when need be, when the game gets away. So all that is important. You're a team. regardless whether it's radio and television. But on TV, again, color analyst becomes more important. Play-by-play guy does more talking on the radio. And so color analyst is important. I do believe one of the things I often think about, also going back to the question about who, when you're describing a game and who's listening, my favorite broadcasts growing up were those involving guys on the air that I didn't know whether they were good buddies or not, but man, it was fun to listen to them. You never knew what they were going to say. Yeah, I wanted to hear the game, but I could tell they were having fun together. And I think that's important to put the audience member at ease, knowing, come on in, sit down next to us, grab a beer. We're having a beer with you. We're mowing the grass with you. We're sitting on the sofa with you, watching TV. We're one of you. And we're just, thank you for letting us share a couple of hours with you as we talk some baseball.
Beautiful. Colton, what else you got?
All right, thank you, Mike. So, Greg, so obviously you have to talk a lot for your job and throughout the season. So, is there anything you do to keep your voice in good shape throughout the season?
Good question, Colton. I still haven't learned after all these years to try and figure that out in terms of saving yourself. Mike Lang's a good buddy of mine. He's tried to teach me that. Still haven't learned it because I sometimes exciting games get away from me, and I've actually lost my voice during the course of a season, which is dumb. I try to do my best. I catch myself going a little overboard. There was one time in 2015, the Pirates were having in the midst of their third straight playoff run, and they were playing national TV games at the end of the first half of the season, just before the All-Star break. It was against the St. Louis Cardinals. I think a 4-game series, might have been a doubleheader on a Friday, and then on national TV on a Saturday night and a Sunday night, and all the games were exciting and sold out crowds. And I could feel this season getting to me in terms of wearing you down, because it will wear you down. And we're not on the baseball field. We're every single night. And it's an emotional and to a degree physical, but certainly an emotional drain. You're doing a lot of traveling, a lot of in and out, we talk about saying hi to people. You're on the go all the time, very few breaks, very few off days. And so that All-Star break comes at a very good time because you really needed to take the great exhale for 4 days. But I could feel my body kind of running down, but doggone it, I couldn't. You got to go. So we had this doubleheader. Last at bat wins, and then Saturday night comes, and man, I had that little tickle in my throat on Saturday night as the game was going on. So now I go. We have a coffee maker in the back. I started getting a microwave oven as well, hot tea and honey. Started pouring that down between innings. Pirates win on like a walk-off home run by McCutchen on this Saturday night, and I'm giving it all, not holding anything back. Sunday comes along, it's worse. I could feel as the game is going on, I'm losing the voice. Every once in a while, a word won't come out, and my partner kind of looks at me, but got through it. And again, they walk it off on a Gregory Polanco 10th inning at bat. But I knew that 4 days was coming, those 4 off days. And I said in my back of my mind, the heck with this. It's all go, because I have 4 days and I'm going for it. And I didn't hold back. And for sure, as shooting, I could not speak for 3 straight days. That 4th day came along, the voice was coming back. And when we resumed the season, it was back. But, that's the long-winded answer there to say I should be more careful. All broadcasters I know have their own thing, gargling with hot salt water if you start to feel like you're losing it. And Vince Scully often talks about how he would often have these caramel candies at the ready. And rather than drinking a bunch of water, he would have that between innings. So I do that on occasion too. But just trying to be smart is the best advice, I guess.
I'm sure all of these guys know the name Vin Scully. Is he in your top 3?
Yeah, he's definitely
do you have a top 3?
My top 3 are personal favorites. I think that's the other thing too about broadcasting. What I like about the business so much, it is so personal. I half kiddingly say that if half the people like you, you've won the game, but right. It is so personal. And so, because sometimes I think to myself, I think certainly if I weren't a Pirates fan, if I were not a Pirates fan, I would hate Greg Brown. I know that. Because I grew up a Phillies fan, and some of those Phillies announcers that went crazy over the Phillies, I hated them. But my buddies, I grew up in central Pennsylvania, they were all Philly fans, and they thought they were the greatest announcers of all. So it's all personal favorites, and Vin Scully is just great because it's a great broadcaster, wordsmith, poet, everything, just as good as it gets. But in terms of like my Mount Rushmore of announcers, my falling in love with the Pirates in my teenage years, it was Milo Hamilton and Lanny Fratteri. Those were my two heroes. And then listening, though I didn't like the Phillies, Harry Kalas was a great listen. Chuck Thompson of the Baltimore Orioles, because we lived near Baltimore. And then as the years have gone on, you're getting to know some guys and really liking them. And Mike Lang is certainly on my Mount Rushmore. Guy I used to work with at the Buffalo Bills. Van Miller is one of my all-time favorites, the late, great Van Miller. So again, I think it's really personal in terms of what you like and you don't like about broadcasters. And those guys I like for various reasons.
Colton, or any of you guys, any questions? Colton, you awake?
I was just saying, the floor is open to anybody if they want to have questions for Greg.
Greg Brown, I have a question. Like you got your calls like cannonball coming, clear the deck, cannonball coming, trip, triple. How do you come up with them sayings? And do you like try to continue to have new ones for each season that's about to happen?
Shane, that's a great question. And my buddy Mike Lang does try and do that, his different sayings. I don't do that intentionally if they come about. Over the years, I've gotten emails, texts, friends, and really, I've said I don't know that I've had one original idea in my life. Most of them are stolen. I was actually with a buddy of mine at a bar many years ago with Mike Lang. He was at the bar, and my buddy was standing alongside a crowded bar, and Mike had his back turned to us and was paying no attention to our conversation. But my buddy's telling me a story. He called me Brown, not Greg. He goes, Brown, I'm telling you something. This guy didn't know whether to blank, he'd cussed. This guy didn't know whether to blank or wind his watch. And Mike, in the midst of a drag, smoking a cigarette, turns around and stops us. He spins around his bar stool and he says, what'd you say? And my buddy goes, well, he didn't know whether to or wind his watch. And Mike goes, oh, I like that. And he says to the bartender, can I have a pen? And he gets a napkin, and my buddy and I are going crazy. This was, again, years ago before I started working in sports, but still knew Mike. And we both went, are you going to use this call? And he goes, I might. Anyway, weeks later, we went to a hockey game, Penguin game. And after the game, we got into our cars and we turned on the radio hoping to hear this call because weeks go by and we haven't heard it yet. Well, sure enough, after the game, they're doing highlights and Mike says, and then the Penguins made it 2-1. Now Lemieux down the right wing circles, over to Yager pass Hextall. He shoots and scores, and Hextall didn't know whether to cry or wind his watch. So the only he did was he changed the cuss word from blank to cry, and we felt like we were heroes. We were a part of, and that's the genius of Mike Lang, because now, we're invested. We feel like this is our broadcast. We gave Mike one of his great sayings. So over the years, fans have done that with me. I had a fan once, we had a Ramos Ramirez. He emailed me, he goes, have you ever thought about a home run call for a Ramos Ramirez? Not really. He said, how about a Rama Lama Ding Dong? And crazy nuts, but why not? So Ramirez playing for the Pirates hits, every time he hit a home run, I'd go, a Rama Lama Ding Dong. And it's just kind of a wacky, nutty thing. It's in terms of those ones that have kind of become known, clear the deck, cannonball coming, for example. My barber, who's a good buddy of mine and actually is a part-time bartender and owns a restaurant theater in McKees Rocks. About 10 years ago, he called me. He was having a party at his house with his family, and it must have been probably 2 a.m. in Pittsburgh because I was in San Diego, and it was 11 at night after a game. And he, in a half inebriated state, said, "I've got the call for you. After a home run, we figured it out. Clear the deck, cannonball coming." I said, that sounds pretty good. It's got a little maritime tone to it. It's piratey. It's near the river. And so So I started using it, and I didn't know if it was going to catch on or not. And not many people were paying attention to the Pirates those days. It was before the playoff run. But I was down on the field in the dugout one afternoon early, and the pitchers were taking batting practice. And they didn't see me. They didn't know I was there. I wasn't there to be seen. I was just hanging out, again, in the dugout down the steps. And I was just doing some notes and kind of watching. They had a little home run derby amongst the pitchers before the regular batting practice was taking place. And some pitcher hits a home run, and somebody yelled, "Clear the deck, cannonball coming." And I thought, that's all I need. That's the sign off, the signature by a player. If they are willing to, again, sign off on it, then I sure will. The Raise the Jolly Roger, many years ago, before I was an announcer, I was in the Pirates front office. I went to a VP of the Pirates. I was in marketing, and I said, how about after the Pirates win a game, we put up a big skull and crossbone at the top of Three River Stadium on a flagpole, so that people that go to work at the Point downtown Pittsburgh, whether they listen to the game or not the night before, if they saw that flag raised, they would know the Pirates had won the night before, because when Pirates capture ships on the sea, they take down the other flag and they raise their skull and crossbones. He said, "Get out of my office, kid. We don't run a circus." Those were his words. So I kept that in the back of my mind. Later on, fast forward, I become a broadcaster. Bob Walk, one of my partners, insisted that I have a end of game call like all the other iconic broadcasters over the years. Marty Brenneman said, "This one belongs to the Reds." Lanny Fratteri said there was no doubt about it. Before him, Bob Prince. We had him all the way. Put it in the books as Howie Rose of the New York Mets. So just about every announcer has this end of game winning call. And I told Bob, I said, I just don't want to get caught up in that unless it's really good. And he said, how about something piratey? When Pirates capture ships, I said, that's it. I said, I was talking about that 15 years ago. He says, they call that the Jolly Roger. I said, the skull and crossbones. He said, how about hoist the Jolly Roger, which is proper terminology, hoist rather than raise, but I thought that was too formal. So I tweaked it to Raise the Jolly Roger, and lo and behold, it goes on. The trip, triple, Shane, one quick trip, triple is an ode to when I was playing wiffle ball on the pavement of a grade school during the summer. I used to play wiffle ball all the time with a bunch of neighborhood kids. And this is, heck, I'm 11 years old. And when anyone on our team would hit a triple, one guy, Dave Herlihy, would say, trip, trip, triple. When a guy, and that stuck with me. And so started using it. And anyway, so everything has a different story.
I just want to underscore everything, that Greg just said. All you folks that desire to do this, you're genuine and you're yourself, right? None of this all has roots within you. So your enthusiasm on the air, your sayings on the air, your play-by-play, it's natural. It's who you are, right? And there's some people that try to pretend they're somebody else when that mic comes on.
Yeah, I think that's really critical, because that's one of the things Mike Lang told me from the very beginning. I first started my first year. One of my brothers, like Mike, I have a big family, and a couple of them lived in Pittsburgh. And how about halfway through the first year, my brother called me one time. We're talking about a bunch of things, and he said, "Do you want to hear some criticisms of my buddies are saying?" I said, "Yeah, give it to me. I want to get better." He said a couple things. Number one, people have asked, "Why are you calling Bob Walkie on the air?" I thought, well, I've known Bob even before I was an announcer. I call him Walkie. He goes, "Okay, I wouldn't do that. It sounds presumptuous." Okay. And I thought about it after I hung up the phone. I thought, he's right. Who am I to call Bob? Because a lot of people don't know my history, nor should they, that Bob and I have a history. And so I could understand someone thinking in the back of their mind, like, oh, who's Greg Brown? He just got on board here. He's calling this former Pirate pitcher Walkie. He's so familiar with him. So I've never called him Walkie since. But the other thing he said to me was, they like you, but sometimes you get too enthusiastic over a Pirate play. I said, okay. I hung up the phone, and the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. And I called him back and I said, I appreciate it. I won't call Bob Walkie again because that's good, but you tell the other guys to stick it, because I will not apologize. I said, I know Mike Lang's a buddy of mine. I hear no criticism of him calling a goal in preseason like it's the 7th game of the Stanley Cup. Back then, Myron Cope was the Steelers announcer. Listen to a training game, a preseason game with him. He goes nuts. So I will.
Mike, you muted out. Oh, Greg, you muted out.
Yeah. What time is it, Colton? How far are we in?
1:30, Mike. Exactly.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see if he gets back on here.
Anyway, I said I will not apologize for being a Pirates fan. And so some guy comes in here and gets excited about the Pirates, I will not apologize. And so when you talk about being genuine, Mike, and then I went to Mike Lang and said, this was after a couple of years. I thought, gee, should I change this? I don't know. This is catching on. I think people are kind of getting sick of me. But he goes, listen, one thing you can do whatever you want, but do never, ever, ever be something you're not on the air. Especially in Pittsburgh, they can identify a phony in a heartbeat. They'll find out that's way worse. Don't be someone you're not. Be yourself. Don't try and be another announcer. Don't try and be like me. Don't try. And that stuck with me. And I understand the criticism. I've been criticized a lot for it, but you can't change who you are. And that's part of the fun, by the way, of the job. I didn't get the job wanting to be someone else. I wanted Greg Brown to be an announcer, not somebody else. So that made a lot of sense.
Yeah. And that it's a natural passion and enthusiasm you bring to the game and to the listeners. I'm speaking for myself, but many others. It's engaging. You said earlier, it brings me into the game. I just don't turn it on to get, here's the 2-2 pitch. I want to know where that 2-2 pitch is.
One of the things that I think that Mike and I've known Mike Fetchko for a lot of years, but I do believe that you become attached to certain people more than others for whatever various personalities. But my belief is that I'm attracted to passionate, enthusiastic people. And I speak to a lot of classes, high school, college, individuals. I have coffee pre-COVID over the winter dozens of times with aspiring high school, sometimes graduates, sometimes adults who have been in the professional business world doing something completely different for a long time, wanting to know, how can I become a broadcaster? And I always say to everyone, like, I don't care, especially when I speak to classes, I don't care if any one of you on this call right now decide you want to be an announcer, a male person, doctor, lawyer. I don't care what it is in life. I beg you to have passion for something. Find that passion. Don't waste your life. There's so many times, Mike, when I love all these kids that email me and say, I'll do anything to be a broadcaster. What can I do? Can I meet you for coffee? And the boy, so this is great. Heck yeah. And I sit there across the table from them and I want to grab them by the collar and say, wake up, live your life, find a passion. It drives me insane. Like, right. What are you doing? What are you walking this earth for? Other than finding out what is your talent, what is your passion, and go for it. I mean, I can't imagine just robotically walking through life without finding some passion. And I believe that I'm a prime example, and I don't mean this egotistically at all. It's almost an out-of-body experience, but I tell them, like, if Greg Brown from Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, this podunk hick town, grows up to wanting to be a baseball broadcaster, and he becomes one, and I have a modicum of talent, I tell people, modicum of talent, you have to have some talent. I've got that much enthusiasm and passion. And I wear that proudly. And I beg everyone to find it. You may be, I don't know what years you all are in terms of your Point Park status, sophomores, seniors, whatever. But there may come a time where, you know, you're sitting there going, I really want to be an announcer, but I really wanted to do this. I really did want to get into law. I really did wanted to get, you know, actually I like numbers and thinking of CPA or the healthcare field, whatever it is, you know, again, that's the thing to do more than anything else, more than any advice I ever give anybody. Find what you love and hold on to it, grab it. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do it, because they are dead wrong. You've got to have the passion. You got to be willing to work. I mean, and willing to drop everything at the drop of a hat. I tell people, you have a great advantage over Greg Brown right now. I'm married happily with a family. I can't leave at the drop of a hat, Pittsburgh. I would imagine no one is married with a family on this call. And you still have the whole world as a canvas. You could go anywhere in the world, take advantage of all of that freedom and live your life. I can't stress that enough.
Beautiful, Greg. He's laid it out. We only have a couple minutes. Is anybody have anything for Greg? Any quick question?
I have a quick question. Hi.
Hi, Taylor.
Hi.
Tell us who you are. Tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Taylor Sprito. I'm a senior broadcast reporting major with a creative writing minor, and this is what I want to do for a career, sports broadcasting or play-by-play. So my question is, how do you get your foot in the door within this industry when so many people who are in these positions, whether it be play-by-play or color commentary, are so tenured and you know that they're not really going to be going anywhere anytime soon? Like, how do you just try to get into that position where you will be ready to take over when the time that they leave comes?
Yeah, Taylor, for me, it's getting your foot in any door. It's again, it goes back to being willing to do anything. I would have worked for free initially. In fact, did as an intern, and so one of the ways I got my foot in the broadcasting door, one of the ways was to basically work for free for Steve Blass and Mike Lang in the television booth. I was kind of their quasi stage manager. And all I did was I wanted them to do the best they could on the air. They knew I wanted to be a broadcaster, but I would watch, and if they struggled with some public address announcing or a press box announcement, I would run down the steps and find out exactly what it was. And I'd write a note, and that they called an error on the shortstop, or there was some information that they needed, and they wanted a cup of coffee. I'd run down and get that. Just kind of being there. And that led to Mike Lang giving me a break on the air, did a couple of innings of play-by-play. One of the most successful New York City talk show hosts over the last 50 years, probably, Craig Carton, who got in some trouble. In fact, HBO doing a story on him currently, a documentary. He got in trouble with gambling, but he and Boomer Esiason had the #1 talk show in New York for like 5 years. He was my producer in Buffalo. He was answering calls, people calling in that wanted to talk to me on the air. And then he was, again, willing to work hard. He was there at all hours. He would do some other shows. And then he started to fill in on occasion on weekend sports talk. And he parlayed that into a full-time career. Good buddy of mine at Point Park, Bob Pompiani. Bob and I were interns at the same time. I interned at the Pirates. Bob was interning at KDK TV. There are a lot of interns that end up doing television on-air stuff. And so it's getting your foot in the door. But I really think the way to get the foot in the door is to show that passion, show them that you're willing to just work hard at anything. And you're not going in there to say, hey, I want to be on the air right now. I deserve it. I'm not suggesting you would, Taylor, by the way. But it's going in there saying, listen, I want to be on the air someday. Let that be known. And I'm willing to do what it takes. And can I come in here and heck, I believe, I guess I'm romantic in that I believe you could go into not emailing, not sending a resume over email, but actually either typing it up old school, sending a letter, handwriting something. Better yet, go to the studio, go somewhere where you think there might be an opening and think you could do a good job, and knock on a door and say, I'm here to talk to the program director. What? Does he know you're coming? Well, I left a message and told, and you don't mind if I sit here for a while, as long as I'm not bothering you, I'd like just to say hi. Give me 5 minutes. Anything you can do to get your foot in the door with respect, humbly, and being willing to work hard. And I believe my heart of hearts, you'll do it.
And Greg, that one step up that colleges have, in this case, Point Park, they have a studio. They've got a radio.
Yeah.
They got an in-house TV station. Go out there and do all the sports. And then the University of Pittsburgh, an ACC member, everybody, has a requirement to broadcast all their sports for the ESPN ACC network channel. They need people to cover their sports, not just football and basketball, but all of them. It really requires you sitting quietly, I think, Greg, thinking about your passion and what you want to do and actually getting out there and doing it. And like you said, coupled with that, Greg, that no wall's too high to climb
and I hate to be like Mike, the old man here in the building or on the Zoom, but you guys, not much. You guys do have an advantage that Mike and I certainly did not, and it's a gigantic advantage. And we're all on our devices right now. I can't imagine having the opportunity to use the phone to actually broadcast. Heck, I used to do it on a tape recorder in my living room, watching a live sporting event. No internet. You could right now, you could even cheat if you wanted to. You could go watch an old game of any sport. If you're talking about play-by-play, you could get the statistics, have them there. You could watch the game and prepare. You shouldn't. I wouldn't recommend it because I think it's important to act like it's live. But to sit there and do it time and time again until you get better. If you want to be an anchor, use this phone and do dummy scripts. Do a 5-minute sportscast. Do it every night. Gather the sports that you can, the sports of the day locally, and look into your device and record a 5-minute sportscast. Do it today, do it tomorrow, do it every day at 6 o'clock. Do it for a week, 2 weeks, do it for a month. Go back and look at it. You'll see the good and the bad. You'll see you're not looking good. You're going to see you're not smiling. You're stumbling over words. You'll get better at that just by time and time again. Then call a program director, take the best one that you have anywhere at a local small station, radio or TV, and just say, listen, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I know how successful you are. By the way, find out their history as well. Find out where they came from, because as you know by this, people love to talk about themselves. It is the great hook you can get in anywhere because people love to talk about their stories, as evidenced by Greg Brown. And you can get on a phone call or a text or an email and say, I would love for you just to do me a favor. If you have 5 minutes, just take a look at what I send you or listen and give me a quick critique, because I respect you and how you got to where you are, that kind of thing. It's an unbelievable advantage.
Excellent. I was just going to add, Greg, every year, we're in a pandemic now, but every year we've helped orchestrate for Point Park students to go to the baseball winter meetings. We take about 8 to 10, and they all get jobs, AA, A-ball, some AAA. And some want to be broadcasters. And I tell them what you tell them here this afternoon. Just get in the door and work in the sales or work in marketing. Keep your passion alive for the broadcast booth. If that's to be, it's going to be, if you have the drive behind it. But what I'm saying to everybody there's 180 minor league baseball clubs out there. There's X amount of minor league hockey. There's basketball leagues. You want to get there and you have the talent, you're willing to work on your talent. I think, Greg, the world's their dream, right? It can all happen.
Yeah, and so I understand that some people believe that you got to know somebody and so on, but having been around long enough, knowing enough stories and knowing the advantages that are there, the opportunities that are there, I believe that if you do have that talent, and not everyone can. I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. I couldn't. As much passion as I have for it, couldn't. Would love to be playing in the NFL. What's that?
You were a pretty good shortstop.
Yeah. Pretty good softball shortstop. But but the point being that you can have all the love and passion for something, and just the fact of the matter is not everyone is going to be a broadcaster. But there are so many other, as Mike said, opportunities aside from the 180 minor league baseball play-by-play jobs, the front office. There's stuff in front of the camera. There's stuff behind the camera. There are a lot of producers, directors, cameramen, camerawomen, engineers. Just if you want to get into the communications broadcast business, yeah, it is out there. But you absolutely have to be willing, because I believe if you have that little bit of talent and you have the willpower, the desire, the drive, and the enthusiasm, the passion, then for me, there is no excuse. I just don't believe there is one. And frankly, not to be rude, don't have a lot of time for people who make excuses, because that's all it is excuses. It means you really don't want it. I'm convinced that it all comes down to, it's like when you wanted your first car. And I'm not, if everyone has bought their first car yet, or you're thinking about it, but I remember mine, and I remember seeing that car. And once it got in my mind, it was like, it was over. I don't care how much it costs. I'm getting that car. I'm going to do it. I'm going to save. And I did it. I mean, when you hold on to something dear, a dream, a goal, and you tell yourself and others, I am not going to be denied. You'll get there. Again, no excuses.
Yeah. And there's a lot of jobs in sports. If you don't really make it in the broadcasting path, there's management jobs, there's marketing again, there's sales, there's social media now. Just all you students, and just to share with Greg, one of my best friends in the world was a minor league. We came out of Arizona State, got drafted by the Astros. In his first month, Greg, at A-ball, shattered his knee in a slide, and he was done. He went into Wichita, got into management, became the GM, and then I met him at the Cleveland Indians, where he was a VP. And he just retired after 25 years with his other passion. He loved baseball and he loved golf. Just retired as the executive director of the LA Open, right?
Wow.
Loved golf, Riviera, right? Country club. So he had a drive, Greg. He had a passion like you. He still does. He's in his late 60s, but his story was, I was defeated, but I rose up, right? And he found his niche. So everybody, if there's one final question we have for Greg, or we missed somebody and they got a burning question, let's do it, because it's a busy day for everybody.
Right. Greg, I got one more, because I think it's important, because this has happened to me and some other fellow students I know on this call. So because of COVID, some of us have unfortunately had internships cut short or postponed because of the virus. What would you say to us if we did happen to have that unfortunate experience, and we may have not gone as much of experience with internships or experience outside of the classroom as we hoped?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to Mike's point, Colton, I think you have to get yourself up off the mat and understand that it's not just woe is me, because it's happened to everyone. I would encourage everyone to call back when COVID is over and see if you can't still get that internship. Don't give up on it yet. But if you were granted it the first time, that means there's something you did that was right. So you've got that in your back pocket. Something was right, that you had an internship. So don't give up on that, and move forward with the next step, whether that's an internship or actually a part-time or full-time job in that field. I will tell you, I don't bring this up because I bring it up because he's my son, but because he did it without me. And it speaks to this passion, drive, and desire. My son is going to school right now, undergrad, but he's going to end up going to law school. And he's his senior year now. But a couple of years ago, he cold called, unbeknownst to me, a bunch of minor league and independent league teams, cold called them, to my point earlier. and just say, could I speak to someone? He found the names. Anyhow, he ended up getting a junior year internship, play-by-play job for a college summer league team in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Kind of meaningless, but it was fun for him. He got 20 games in. He parlayed that into going into the 2020 year. He took some tapes, sent that out to some other teams, and was going to get paid in 2020 to call Evansville, Indiana Frontier League baseball games, like 50. He's going to live out there. And imagine how excited he was. Well, shattered, same thing. But I admire him, and I tell him this. I appreciate, again, he did all of this without anyone knowing who Greg Brown was, which I'm most proud of, because I told him that some people take their family name or what their parents do and they run with it. That's all well and good. I personally never did that. My father didn't believe in that, and so my son does not either. But the point is, he called the Evansville guy again going into this year, and the guy said, well, matter of fact, we didn't have a season last year and hadn't thought about it, but if we have a season this year, you're our guy again. So, and if he doesn't do that, he'll move on to something else. The point being, use whatever you got, whether you got that internship for 1 year and they said that's it, maybe you could go back and get it again for another year, but don't give up on the idea that you did something right to be granted that internship in the first place. Use that to your advantage.
And his son is a 10 out of a 10.
Yeah, sharp guy.
Sharp guy. And he has Harvard potentially in front of him, and University of Chicago, Cornell, Pitt's law school. So he's tremendous. It speaks to that same drive. You all have to have drives. Colton, I'm not going to beat you up, but if I hear you whine one more time about COVID-19, you got to get past it, bro.
It wasn't a whine, Mike. I was just saying. Because
go start a blog, start writing a journal.
I will say that, not to interrupt you, Mike, but I will say to Colton and to others about that. In fact, this came to mind. I'd forgotten about it till you mentioned that, but I did a podcast today with a recent college graduate who was kind of in that situation. He was, I forget exactly what he was gearing up to. He was doing some play-by-play, I believe, some college play-by-play. I think went to Carlo, if not mistaken. Anyhow, it was doing some PA, but it all came to a screeching halt. And he kind of said that, after a couple days of feeling the world was against me, I figured I better do something. And he took what he had and he started a podcast. I think today's was his 86th. Coming up in 2 weeks will be a 1-year anniversary of his podcast that he started. He's looking to have 100 interviews done. And it's gotten a pretty decent following. He's actually, I think, gotten some advertisements from people. And by the way, your companies are looking for your age group. That's another advantage. Each one of you, that is in their wheelhouse. You guys can wield some power there when it comes to the audience that they're attracted to. And hosts your age are right in the prime. So if you're looking for that, podcasting is obviously a great idea. Now you have to find your niche, what will separate you from the thousands of others. But start by the hard work. And again, go back to my credo that people love to talk about themselves. You can talk to you call someone, anybody, and you say, would you join? Come up with a great catchy name, your own unique name to this podcast. That's critical for these podcasts. They have to be unique. You've got to find that hook, whatever it might be. And Colton's Clamorings, whatever it might be. And you call whoever it might be, you say, would you like to join Colton's Clamorings? My podcast that I started recently, and find out the story, do a lot. This guy today did an unbelievable job of looking up my history. He knew stuff I couldn't believe. And again, advantage, internet. You can do more research than any of us could possibly have imagined just 25 years ago. Do that, and as Mike says, heck, start a podcast. Do anything.
Taylor's Travels.
There you go. Taylor's Travels. That's an idea. I don't know. I can't. I'm on my phone. I was going to use my iPad, but I can't get on it, so I don't have a view of everybody. But I'm wondering, if do we have the names on there? I can only see you at the moment, Mike. Mary Beth.
You got Jordan and Ben and RJ and
okay.
Taylor.
Jordan's Jammerings. Think of
Ben?
something. What do you got, Ben?
Ben's BS. No, Ben, what do you got? It's catchy.
Ben 10.
Ben and 10. What about
Oh, I like it. Ben and 10.
RJ?
I was thinking something like RJ's Revelation or something along that line.
RJ's Revelations.
There you go. Jill. I don't know if Jill's still with us, but maybe not. Anyway, Greg, final words. Final words from you. Thank you so much for all your time. We're going to let you wrap it up. You know, today's Zoom has been brought to you by, go ahead, Greg. It's been brought to you by
Point Park University.
Like from Chevrolet, like baseball, hot
Point
dogs.
Park University. Be a pioneer like nobody's business. Pioneer your way to a great career. Pioneer your career. Yeah. Hey, thanks a million for having me on here. And I said I root for every pioneer. Special place in my heart. And Mike's got my contact. If you feel like maybe you're too shy to ask a question today, a couple days come around, you think, daggone, I wish I'd just pass that along to Mike, and you can call me or email me, and be happy to help you along the way. No matter what it is, it doesn't have to be in broadcasting. Just in your career, you struggle, you're worried about something. Believe me, I've had plenty of pitfalls and pit stops and crossroads and forks. I tell people an old Hall of Fame player named Yogi Berra was known for his kind of malapropisms and his crazy sayings. One saying he had was, "I came to a fork in the road and I took it." And as funny as that sounds, he's right on the money, because I've come to some forks in the road and I took it. Those opportunities come around, you'll want to do that. And there's very little that I haven't seen or heard along the way. So hopefully I'd be of some help if indeed you're looking for that.
Beautiful. Everybody, thank you. Greg, I'll see you in Florida, hopefully in a few
See you in 3 weeks. Yep.
All right. And please get behind the Tampa Bay Bucks. We need
Go Buccos. I mean, go Bucks.
We need that. We need that spirit. We need that.
Let's go Bucks. Let's go Bucks.
Different. Yeah. See, we can do a voiceover now. But
Thank you, Mike.
Bruce Arians is all about passion for the game, coaching, and his players. So he lives it. And we all should do that. Should all find the passion you're interested in. Everybody, thank you. Really, Greg, thank you so much. See you soon. God bless.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.